What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of My Hero Academia, and this one, every episode seems to be leading into something else, and I'm very excited for that because I think we're coming up to the pinnacle, the moment that we've been waiting for with Mirio versus Overhaul. But this episode isn't that. This is still good, so let's get into it. So this episode definitely carried a lot of weight for some of the other characters, mainly in the sense that there are things happening obviously out of their control, but yeah, the out of the control part's actually the more scary part than anything else. But initially we get back to Red Riot and Fat Gum, and with Fat Gum having taken out the, well, we thought taking out the other group, we have this moment where, well, number one, Kirishima doesn't recognize Fat Gum, which is kind of funny because he just lost all that weight to do what he did. But also we end up having this moment, a bit of a flashback, where we see why Kirishima was brought to the Fat Gum agency was because we have two very similar characters. So we obviously have Sun Eater, tends to kind of be frozen by self-doubt. Kirishima was in the same boat, and we know now that that's what Sun Eater saw in Red Riot. I think that's actually really cool. Also, it's very difficult for me to kind of like keep the names straight now between hero names and regular names, but I'm trying. So if I can't remember their real names, I'm using hero names. If I remember both, I just kind of pick one. Anyway, so of course we do have that moment with Kirishima sort of realizing his potential and being the hero that he wants to be, with his not just fighting spirit alone, but actually like putting the actions to his words. So that was pretty cool. We also get a cut to Overhaul, Chronostasis, and Eri. And Overhaul's carrying, he said, the finished product, which makes me think that he now has the bullets that don't just temporarily pause quirks, but actually like completely disable them, which makes me very scared for what may happen in the future with Mirio, but we're not there yet. But then they have some other characters who we're quite familiar with. We have Toga and Twice, and he called them temps, which is kind of funny. So they are, at this point, members of the Yakuza. They are fighting alongside them, but they have ulterior motives, which we learn about later. Boy, this is shaping up to be quite the showdown with everyone. But getting back to Fat Gum and Kirishima for a moment, we have Rappa, the guy who has the power shoulders stand up, and he wants to continue fighting, but he's really not in the shape to fight. Like everybody else involved, none of them are in the shape to fight, and especially Mr. Power Shoulders over there, because his arms are just ruined. They're like hanging, he can't really move, so that's, yeah. He turned out to be a lot more useful, though, which I think is kind of funny. In fact, the barrier dude actually was worthless in this instance because he's taken out immediately by Rappa just by him being stepped on. And they point out, or Rappa points out, that there's a room where they can get patched up to keep fighting. And Fat Gum gets patched up, Kirishima gets patched up. Rappa doesn't patch himself up, which is kind of weird, but they do wrap up, like tie down the barrier dude, so that was kind of funny. But we learn the backstory of why Rappa is working for the Yakuza, which is the fact that he used to fight in the MMA, which is where people go all out with their quirks, and he took out everybody. So many people he managed to take out, but he couldn't beat Overhaul. At one moment he was dead, then he was brought back, and he did it 5 more times, and he just kept getting killed and brought back by Overhaul. So now he's working for Overhaul so that he can actually defeat him someday, which, I mean, if that guy who gave Fat Gum and Kirishima together a run for their money, if he was defeated by Overhaul, that really worries me for characters like Mirio and Deku and everybody else who hasn't been taken out by the other groups yet. But after we have this moment where we learn a bit more about Rappa, because Fat Gum's asking questions and Kirishima's all patched up, but they can't really catch up to the main group, we, as the viewer, catch up to the main group, and we get to see what's going on with them, which is that Mimic has changed his focus back to the main group, but he did let Mirio ahead. So I guess he said he doesn't really see Mirio as much of a threat, which worries me, number one. But number two, I think that really does show the underestimation of these characters, like how much they're underestimating Mirio, but I guess we'll see. I did almost forget because, again, like I do every episode, I got ahead of myself. We have, of course, Fat Gum learning more about something that they're doing, the Yakuza's doing, that involves a drug or involves something that once they get funding for it, they will distribute it. And this is another portion of the group learning about this mystery quirk-destroying drug, which means that Fat Gum was right on the mark with it, but yeah, this is where things are going to get very, very bad for, I'm sure, a couple characters. It just worries me who. Now, getting back into the main group and how they're dealing with Mimic, we get to see Rocklock's ability and learn more about it, so he can actually freeze objects that he touches, which is actually really cool, and it does, like I said, it reminds me a lot of the locking ability that you have with the Sheikah Slate in Breath of the Wild. But he can lock stuff down. With enough force, it can break through, but because Mimic is using the walls and sort of controlling them with his ability, we have the walls able to be locked down because they're inanimate objects. So Rocklock locks them down, and they run through this little hole, and they just keep trying to move forward. Deku keeps smashing the walls, which is, it's cool to see that like his ability and his training is really paying off, and his shoot style is awesome, and I can't wait to see more of it, but it's just consistency on Deku's part to knock these walls down, and Mimic keeps trying to throw more walls at him while Rocklock's like locking the walls down. It's everybody working together for and against each other, so yeah, that's something. And the problem they're running into is that we have, of course, him somewhere nearby keeping an eye on them, but we don't know where, and so because of that, Eraserhead can't get eyes on where Mimic's at in the building or in the walls, so he can't disable his quirk. So Mimic's just having a field day with these guys, and he's doing it all while the two members of the League of Villains are showing up to help. And this is where it gets even more interesting and worrying. Now, once the two members of the League of Villains are close enough, we have the main group divided out into three, with Rocklock on his own, which is to his detriment later. We have Sir Night-Eye in the middle with the police, and then we have Deku, and we have Eraserhead, and they are all separated out. Now, they can still hear each other, but the first victim of this plan is, unfortunately, Rocklock, and he gets to face off against Toga, and it doesn't go well for him. Well, I say he faces off against Toga. He went up against a duplicate made by Twice, and then once he took that one out, he then got stabbed by the real Toga. And once that happened, we have Deku and Eraser busting through the wall to help him, and Eraser had put it together immediately, so that was good. Deku didn't. That was bad, and it almost cost him probably a couple cuts, cost him some hair, because as soon as Eraserhead realized what was happening, he disables Toga's quirk, and the mimicry, the look that she had of Rocklock melts off of her, and it just kind of all goes to hell after that. And even with Eraser getting his straps around her and pulling her back, she perfectly managed her way around it. She managed to actually stab him and lay in some damage, and then she escaped. And I didn't know Eraserhead carried a knife, but I guess it makes sense because his ability is only to disable quirks, but he can usually restrain people, but makes sense he carries a knife because if he can't restrain them, it means that he can at least fight back to some degree. So Eraser takes some damage, takes a swing at Toga, actually gets a cut on her face, which she was just thrilled about, which was kind of disturbing, and then Deku actually begins to piece together the melting look that she has when her quirk is disabled or when she turns off her quirk. That melting is exactly like somebody we got to see during the exams, and he kind of pieces together that she was at the exams, which is horrifying. We as the viewers already knew that, but I think this was the first time Deku realized it, so that's pretty surprising and scary for him, I'm sure. Now, there was a point in this episode where it goes back and forth between present day, earlier in the season, I don't know. But it goes back and forth because we then go backwards to see Shigaraki talking to Overhaul and playing Shogi, which is a game that Overhaul was trying to use to help Shigaraki see the big picture. And he said the advantage is that he gets to use members of his group, and they're trying to strike a chord and find a fair balance. And obviously Shigaraki's not about that, but it's kind of just odd the way that they both interact, because Overhaul's being very presumptuously kind and open about his plans. And Shigaraki obviously doesn't really want to play nice with anybody, so he's kind of doing his own thing. And even with their agreement set up, he still wants to do his own thing, which we see in another cutback when he's talking with the League of Villains that he works with. And they're all kind of questioning his decision to work with Overhaul, especially after they killed Mag. So, yeah, I want to know more about this plan, but we as the viewers are learning chunks of it as the characters are as well. It also kind of goes to show that Shigaraki kind of leads the League of Villains not just by camaraderie but by fear, because when Toga puts a knife to his neck and when Twice holds back and is asking like, why do you want us to do this, when he takes the hand off of his face and looks at them, the intimidation factor that he has is just astronomical. So it kind of makes sense that he does rule by fear in a lot of ways, but like that level of fear is pretty nuts. Anyway, getting back to the main group again, we're now in the center with, of course, Sir Night-Eye and the cops. And with Sir Night-Eye, we have him facing off against Twice, and who I thought was Rappa. I'm like, how the heck did he get, recovered so quickly? But it turns out he was a clone of Rappa made by Twice, and he was taken out immediately because with Sir Night-Eye's ability, he is a bit faster in hand-to-hand combat, as he said, because he's seen so many people's choices. He knows what they're going to do, or at least can fairly accurately predict what they're going to do. And he uses these ultra-dense seals, personal seals, like what he used to stamp Deku's work study. And those things are, as he said, humorous because it fits his stiff personality. But yeah, he took that Rappa clone out so fast. Holy crap. And it shows how ripped this dude is, too. Like, good God, he's got... okay. Doesn't make sense because he's got to throw those super dense weights around, but still. He also then actually lays in some damage to Twice, which kind of begins the mental breakdown that we see him go through because he has to cover his face. We already know that the mask is sort of something to help him from keeping his mind from splitting or making it feel like his brain's going to split. And they play perfectly into that, like, two voices going against one another thing. It was kind of cool to see. Now, this is where we kind of get to see that Twice and Toga kind of are playing their own game in a way while still working for the Yakuza, because their main goal is just to, well, once they actually do their beginning portion of the task, they're just working on pissing off Mimic, and they succeed because they just keep going on and on about why the Yakuza is dying and how freaking the boss is just on his deathbed basically. And so, yeah, that doesn't play well for getting them to actually get any tokens of gratitude or rewards or anything. They actually end up getting thrown into holes, all the heroes and the two villains. So I don't know what their end game is, actually. Yeah, see like what's going on back there. I don't know why they did that. But anyway, that's enough to set off Mimic, and his plan is to kill everyone, including the two members of the League of Villains. So I guess they're going to try to make the heroes seem like they're working together in a way because of the desperate situation they're in, but I guess only time will tell. Either way, that was the episode, but we do get in the preview, which is why I watch the previews and why I'm very excited for them. We see that Mirio actually manages to catch up to Overhaul. And we see a moment with Overhaul closing the case he was holding, and it was the red case. I don't know what the difference between the red case he was carrying and the blue case are, but he was closing the red case and there was one bullet out of it, which we see him fire, so I don't know if he tries multiple times or if he just uses the one. But yeah, so Mirio is now in risk of either losing his quirk or temporarily losing his quirk, and I'm really worried about what that could spell for the future of Mirio as a hero and what could happen with Deku and everybody else when they manage to catch up. If they manage to catch up. That's the other thing. We don't even know if they're going to catch up yet. But it seems like Eri is close to being saved. I really hope so, but I don't actually know. Apart from that, though, guys, that's been the episode. I'm actually really excited to continue on with this series, obviously, because it's an incredible series. It's got a lot more traction, and you guys seem to like it more than Fire Force. But yeah, this has been a pretty good episode. It was definitely still, like, we're getting a lot of action, but it's a lot of action involved in setting up what's going to happen next. And the next part is what I'm really excited for, and I hope you guys are too. Either way, if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a comment. Let me know if you guys didn't, what you'd fix, if there's anything you would fix, if you got any other comments or anything I may have missed. And yeah, like and subscribe, please. It does mean a lot to me when you all do that. And check out the links in the description. And if you guys want these shirts, there's a link for that in the description as well. And there's also the ad, of course, that plays at the end. But if you guys like what you see, do all that stuff, and check in next week when we talk more about the next episode of My Hero Academia. Till then, I'll see you on the next one. Make sure to be there, and have a good one. Hey guys, just hopping in at the end here. Thanks for watching through the whole video. I hope you enjoyed it. I do still have merch. I've actually had it for quite a while, but not a lot of people know about it or care. And so if you guys want to support me or check it out just because it looks cool, go to the link in the description. You can see some of the designs I have, like the Steel Frodo in Steins Gate design, or even the Mob Psycho 100 design, and maybe even buy one if you like it, or don't. I cried myself to sleep at night anyway. So either way, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you in the next one.